Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Martin O'Neill. At the Monroe County Election Board meeting on July 6th, a new member, Judith Bencart, introduced herself and explained that she is replacing Republican Chairperson Donovan Garlitz.
I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Judith Benkert. I was appointed by the Monroe County Republican Chairman to replace Donovan Garlitz, who had submitted his resignation. I was subsequently sworn in by our illustrious clerk, Brown, and am here today to get things started.
Following Bencart's appointment, board member David Henry proposed that they move up the Democratic presidency for the board by 6 months. Garlitz had previously been president of the board, and given that Bencart is new, it would give her time to get acquainted with the board before being put in the role of president.
So the proposal is to amend our policy that we adopted in 2017 on the rotation of the chair of the president of the board to move the Democratic presidency up 6 months to starting today. Really just to give you a chance to warm up, as we're already in 90 days out from the early voting in October. We have a lot on our plate. I wanted to maybe extend the option to have an opportunity to have some thought leadership to get us through this election cycle, and then we'll revisit the calendar in January to reset. So that was the spirit of the proposal, and to go ahead and move the Democratic presidency up 6 months. It would have begun on January 1st.
County Clerk Nicole Brown explained that there is a precedent for arranging the president's term to give new board members time to ease into their role on the board. Brown also welcomed Bencart to the board.
I have no discussion. There is a precedent from both parties for that to happen when a new member comes on. And just like as Chairman Henry said, to make sure that they have a chance to kind of to ease into the water and not just jump right in. And so first, I also want to say welcome.
Well, thank you very much.
Welcome so much. I was not here when board member Garlitz left. We will certainly miss the contributions that he made to the Monroe County Election Board and wish him well going forward. But we welcome you, and we know that you will do an amazing job. I got to see you on a number of occasions in your previous job. You were very kind to the clerk's office and always willing to work with my office, and so it's lovely to see you today.
The board voted unanimously to approve the amendment that would allow Henry to serve as board president 6 months early. Chief Deputy Clerk Tree Martin asked when Henry's position as president would expire. Brown responded.
He was effective now, and then he would have been on there for 2024 as chair, so he will just run through the end of 2024 when it would revert back to the Republican chair.
So give me the dates exactly.
From today until December 31st at 11:59, 2024. Thank you.
Later, the board discussed establishing a vote center study committee. Henry shared background information on the vote centers in the county.
The Section C of new business is the discussion on the establishment of a vote center study committee. I will go ahead and open up discussion on this, as it was an item that I had asked to be added. This board in a previous iteration in 2011 had considered the idea of opening up our vote system in our county to having vote centers where a member of the public who is registered to vote could vote at any of those locations in the county regardless of precinct for the purposes of counting their ballot in the election. There are some good cost benefit to that activity. And since 2011, when the board last considered it, we now have 2/3 of the counties in the state of Indiana, 60 of them, that have adopted this mode of conducting ballot through vote centers. That includes, of course, the unanimous consent of all 60 of those counties' election boards, both parties, and the respective clerks in those counties that sit on those boards. And so I think, given what we even just heard from Clerk Brown from the Clerks Conference about the challenge we're facing about getting good election day workers, at every cycle it goes by where it's getting harder and harder to find those workers that are willing to do the effort, despite months of recruiting by both parties, that it's worth revisiting. And secondly, I guess as the word got out that we were going to be discussing it, I was encouraged by the vote of the county commissioners and the support of county councilors on the matter. However, our work is to make sure it's a bipartisan decision and not just one that is a partisan one from elected officials, but in fact a bipartisan one. And so I wanted to at least raise the idea of setting up a vote center study committee 12 years after we tried in the past, and to see if we could do this in a bipartisan way that reflects the concerns and questions of all parties, including independents and libertarians in our community, to see if this is a viable option and join the 60 other counties in the state that already do this. So that was the initial idea here, and I'm kind of curious, at least from the other members of the board, initial thoughts or concerns or questions about the pursuit of that effort again.
The board unanimously voted to establish a vote center study committee. They will discuss further details about the committee at their next meeting on August 3rd. At the July 5th meeting of the Monroe County Board of Commissioners, Director Chief Technology Officer Greg Crone presented the Matrix Integration Service Agreement.
Due to a hardware failure of a component known as an adaptive security appliance, or commonly known as an ASA, our Sheriff's Reserve building currently has no network or phone access at all in that building. The security appliance, for lack of a better term, is a router or modem on steroids. It's security is built into this because you don't want people hacking into your wireless signal, obviously, when you're transferring the data. So this is a much more secure appliance than what a standard router or modem would be. We've had to have these configured previously by another company during the previous director's tenure. This piece of hardware was approximately 10 years old, so it's no surprise that it failed. So this request is to have Matrix Integrations come in, configure that ASA hardware, and get that installed for us so that we can have network again at the reserves.
No public questions or comments were made, and the motion passed unanimously. The next item on the agenda was the Adult Protective Services contract presented by Executive Director of the Monroe County Prosecutor's Office, Beth Hamlin.
This is our request for signature on the APS contract. It's entered into between the Monroe County Board of Commissioners, the prosecutor, and Indiana Family and Social Services Administration Division on Aging. Typically, this is a one-year contract. However, this contract is a 2-year contract running from July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2025. And the funds will pay for the provision of adult protective services in Monroe, Morgan, and Owen County.
The commissioners approved the contract unanimously. During the July 3rd meeting of the Bloomington Board of Public Works, Director of Economic and Sustainable Development, Alex Crowley, presented a new electric scooter license application.
What you have in front of you is an updated scooter application. As you may recall, operators need to submit an application, which they do, and then we bring back to the Board of Public Works for your review and approval. The application document that existed previously did not include some of the recommendations that we brought to you back in April. So the document, thanks to Alex Pratt and the legal department, has been updated to reflect those recommendations. And also at the last minute, thanks to Alex again, updated to reflect some of the suggestions you had earlier today. So what you have in front of you is what we would like to release to operators, any operator interested in providing service and operating in Bloomington. The timing would be that we would release it with your approval immediately, and then give them an opportunity to submit their applications and bring those applications back to you by the end of July so that all of this could be effective beginning in August. So this is the application document. It incorporates a bunch of the changes. You'll see those added in to section 10 of the document. And we are also working in the background to facilitate some of the parking issues or solutions that we'd like to implement also in the same time frame, including parking corrals, geofencing, and some of the other rules that they will be now working within. So just to remind you, two primary issues that we've been concerned with, safety of riders and pedestrians. So safety generally, but in particular of riders and pedestrians, and then separately parking generally and the mess that we've seen from time to time as a result of the scooters.
During public comment, local resident Chuck Livingston said he's witnessed electric scooters blocking sidewalks. He showed a series of photos he took documenting the obstructions.
Every photograph you have seen represents a violation of the ordinance that the administration insisted that the council pass 4 years ago. It was written by the administration. It was approved by the council. City Attorney Mike Rooker promised that he would be fining each and every violation. We've seen no enforcement at all. So writing a new license with new conditions will do nothing without a commitment to enforce the ordinance. Talking about corrals, talking about geofencing, talking about education is all fine, but everyone knows that if this is not enforced, we will continue to live under what we've been forced to live under for 5 years. Thank you for your time.
Vice President of the Board, Elizabeth Caron, asked whether this enforcement procedure is a new addition within the proposed license application. Board Secretary Jennifer Lloyd inquired on the timeline of the enforcement. Crowley responded to both requests for clarification.
Is that a new addition that has not been happening up until now, that the operators are not being fined for the improper parking of their scooters?
That's correct. We have not yet done that. But we've also discussed with them and warned them that will be changing.
Do we have a date that that's going to start? That enforcement and fining is going to start?
Yeah, we are aiming all of these implementations to be right around the beginning of August, so to catch, the pre-student arrival moment, and then apply it during the arrival and through the fall into the spring.
Could we have a report at the September meeting as to how enforcement is going and what's been happening in the world of fines and penalties?
Yeah, it might be easier. Well, certainly happy to bring it to you because of the administrative burden of fining. We were thinking that we would probably end up doing so monthly. And so we can certainly speak to the issuance of fines in the September time period, because we will have presumably been capturing any kind of violations during the month of August. I'm not sure that we can speak to the full resolution of those fines at that time, because we will have just issued the fines.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm interested in finding out what's been set in motion, and then we can have later follow-ups as we go along.
The board approved the license application unanimously. The Monroe County Justice Fiscal Advisory Committee met on July 3rd. The committee is required by Resolution 2023-09 to make recommendations to the Monroe County Council about the county jail. At this meeting, the committee discussed services that allow incarcerated people to re-enter their local community.
This is a picture of a graphic that represents the sequential intercept model. And as I mentioned before, it covers kind of the spread of experience from prevention and diversion through someone's encounter with law enforcement and the court system, being incarcerated or going through court system, and then reentry, as well as then community corrections. So today we're focusing on Intercept 4. And Intercept 4 focuses on that time that that's the supports and services that are necessary for folks to leave incarceration and re-enter the local community. in the ways that they want. And it focuses what I was reading a lot about, and I'm talking to people who know way more about this than I am, so I'm aware of this. But it focuses a lot on providing healthcare as well as medication continuation, housing support, employment support, and almost all other kinds of social service supports that you can even imagine, and putting together a plan for that individual. And I think that's something that I read that was very key, was that individualized planning that begins back with Intercept 2, with the initial entry into our jail is key. So getting someone's information and starting that process for moving them through and having them leave the jail, from what I'm reading and from some of the recommendations that we've received, can't start too early.
Jordan McIntyre, Executive Director of New Leaf, New Life, an organization that addresses the unmet needs of people in the criminal justice system, informed the committee of the work the organization is doing. New Leaf, New Life has helped formerly incarcerated people with housing, jobs, and case management.
So we help folks outside of the jail as well as folks inside of the jail that are currently incarcerated. Outside of the jail, folks can come to our Transition Support Center, which is on South Walnut. It's one of the suites with the Perry Township trustees. And that is where Misty and Stacy offer case management. So New Leaf, New Life, we only have 3 staff members. It's myself, Misty, and Stacy. I think that we provide an incredible amount of support for only being 3 people. So right now, Stacy and Misty help about 10 to 12 people per day this year on average. Last year, they helped 2,700 people in person, 3,400 the year before. Basically in the office doing one-on-one case management, helping with employment, I'll chip in a little with the Eve Hill report stuff that you mentioned. So I know that Goodwill is one employer here that specifically will hire people that are reentering. I think that's really important because if people are like on daily reporting, or if they have like weird requirements for hours that they have to go check in, it's really important that an employer can be flexible with that. And Goodwill has really let us hire people that are in jail that can start as soon as they're out.
It is Goodwill Industries as well. It's not Goodwill, the clothing store. It's Goodwill Commercial Services who we built a really strong relationship that will hire folks pretty much as soon as they get out and give them a chance.
New Leaf, New Life asked the committee to consider donating resources to help support the work they already do, rather than reshaping the entire justice system in the community. The Bloomington Redevelopment Commission met on July 3rd. At the meeting, the commission unanimously approved a primary plat for the Hopewell project. The plat will be in place of the former hospital and will provide affordable housing to the community.
It was interesting, we did ask them sort of what are they hearing about Hopewell, and I thought it might be interesting for the RDC to hear some of that feedback. And for some, they felt like Hopewell was starting to become a common name. Like when you say Hopewell, people know where that is. And yet others said, I'm not sure it's really catching on yet, but it's definitely growing, right? So I think that, how is the brand of Hopewell coming along? And then IU Health said, we still have people asking what's happening at the Legacy Hospital, even though the hospital itself now is gone. And so, there continues to be that need to get the word out, to continue to market about what Hopewell is about, that it is going to be bringing affordable housing, that's going to bring sustainability, as well as a lot of diversity of housing types. And so, I think the need to continue to grow that presence of Hopewell, both online and others, continues to grow. And we heard that loud and clear from the steering committee. So
the commission expressed concern about the price of building the website. They agreed that the price proposed by 1031 is too high. Because of this, they postponed the resolution until the next meeting. Deborah Myerson shared her concerns about the cost of the investment.
Based on feedback from our Hopewell Steering Committee that you heard mentioned earlier, social media monitoring and other assorted engagement efforts, we know that many folks, and I would even venture to say the majority of people, are still unaware or at least unclear about what will become of the former IU Health Hospital site. You may know our signage is limited by code to 24 square feet on the site, so this website is envisioned as our highest outreach tool to the community to inform, inspire, and excite potential future residents. We want to provide the history of the site, explain the goals of the overall project as they relate to accessibility, affordability, climate change, livability, really give a feel for what we're trying to accomplish there. And while the folks at U3 are really going to be focusing on the development community, this website will focus on our residents and serve as a primary source of information for anybody interested in the project, especially, again, folks who we hope are excited enough to want to live there in the future. Our former communications director was the lead on this project, but I'm happy to answer any questions and concerns you have.
Later, the Commission approved of continuing security patrol at the Hopewell project property. The property has been subject to nearly 160 incidents in the past year.
I guess for me, one of the things that I was clarifying to me, because quite frankly, still, like, even this amount of money to build a website is a lot of money, is that it seems like the expectation is not just about building a website, but really branding and marketing, and that is included in the scope of work when it comes to, you know, the first thing that's mentioned in the scope of work is brand strategy and messaging. And so I have kind of like one question that's specific to this and then like a broader issue. So one is, we already paid Borshoff over $82,000 for branding and marketing. So what did they do that we could take from what they did and apply it to to building a website?
The Bloomington Redevelopment Commission meets again on July 17th. At the Bloomington Utility Service Board meeting on July 3rd, the board considered a request of approval of an MOU with Touchdown Terrace LLC for sewer contribution on property located at 19th and Dunn Streets. Assistant City Attorney Chris Wheeler presented the MOU.
And in this situation, we have an MOU for 19th and North Dunn Street between CBU and Touchdown Terrace LLC. They are, as I understand it, putting in new apartment buildings, which will increase the use of this average flow or capacity, if you will, of this sanitary sewer stretch by 3.72%. The parties worked on that average, agreed to it, understood the amount of the cost that CBU spent to expand the sewer downstream, which was roughly $2.25 million worth of expansion. And so the calculation done for this MOU and the agreement made was for a one-time contribution by the developer in the amount of $92,548.38. And staff recommends approval of this MOU.
After a few questions, the board unanimously voted to approve the MOU. The discussion then moved on to a second project that was very similar in nature, but was located at 420 East 19th Street, still with Touchdown Terrace LLC for sewer contribution. Wheeler was asked to disclose the amount.
I guess for the record, can you state the amount?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
So this one, it's with the same parties, so we're still dealing with Touchdown Terrace Touchdown Terrace South LLC. And the amount of average flow is 2.61%, and that percentage extrapolated out for the cost of the sanitary sewer infrastructure located south of this project, or downstream, if you will, turns out to be $64,838. That's a percentage of the roughly $2.5 million expense.
That motion also passed unanimously. And that's all for CATSweek. Thanks for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Martin O'Neill.